Ladies and gentlemen, now today I wanted to have a bit of a further chat about the ban on 4-star champions in Act 6. Now that the content is actually out, that we've played through it, that we can see all of the fights to 100% it, all of the matchups, the requirements, the nodes, and all of that fun stuff if you want to get 100% in Act 6 Chapter 1. And bearing in mind, this is the first chapter of 4, and there are going to be 3 more, and the difficulty, the requirements, I imagine, are just going to scale up and up and up, and there's some pretty crazy stuff, man. Some pretty crazy stuff in the final chapter, which we're going to talk about today. Now, after playing it, I still have the very strong view that the 4-star champion ban is just, at its core, still a completely senseless cash grab that disadvantages players who have not been lucky enough to pull certain counters as 5- and 6-star champions. And this is somewhat apparent on completion, because one of kind of the biggest roadblocks when you're going through is the crossbones. The crossbones is probably the biggest enemy for a lot of people to tackle. He's got 400,000 health. He's got the vigor node as well, so a fair amount of regeneration there. So you need not only a bleed immune champion for the biohazard node on crossbones, but you also need a bleed immune champion that can deal a fair bit of damage. And when it comes to all of the counters in the game, it's a little bit niche in that regard. You know, there are not that many champions that can deal enough damage to overpower crossbones, so it does become a little bit of a clown fiesta there, and that is kind of the chapter where I've seen a fair few people get stuck, and especially on my free-to-play account, I'm very, very fortunate that I made the decision to fully max out my Sentinel, because that is one of the only ways that I would have been able to get through that fight, but also very fortunate as well that I have like a Luke Cage that I could have maxed out on my roster, and also an Iceman as well, so I'm, you know, very lucky that I've got such sick bleed immune options. But again, a lot of people have been struggling with this crossbones because the counters to him are fairly niche, but a lot of kind of the veteran endgame players, most people have a good enough bleed immune champion to get him down, and can thus kind of pass through that fairly hard block there and get the completion done. So the completion, you know, every single chapter has 10 paths. There's bound to be one in every single chapter, and there is in every single chapter that is really, really straightforward and very, very easy to deal with for the majority of champions in game, just in terms of the path itself. However, it's important to bear in mind that completion of this stuff and exploration in terms of the utility you need are an entirely different kettle of fish. There are some crazy requirements. If we look at the final chapter, man, and some of the fights and lanes in this, guys, oh, some of the stuff is absolutely nuts. So one of the first things that we have is a shock lane. So this is kind of like your standard bleed poison lane, but you need to bring a shock immune champion, or a champion like Aegon or Ghost that can shrug off this shock. And if you don't, man, then you just don't really have a way of getting through this lane. You've got like a really stacked Ultron, really stacked Magic as well, you know, and on my main account, I have honestly no idea how I'm going to deal with this. Kind of looking at this, like my best shock immune character, because all the shock immune champions seem to be avoiding me like the plague at the moment, that I have as a 5 or 6 star. I think it's my 5-star Awakened Nebula of rank 2, and against that 6-star 32k Magic, I'm not too sure she's going to be terribly effective, but I think with like my maxed out 5-star Captain America Infinity War, and I really hope this works, if I can build kind of the skill synergy around him, and you need to have, you know, Cap Infinity War Awakened for that at a very, very high level. Hopefully he's going to shrug off the shock as soon as we get a parry in one of those kinetic charges. So that's a way to play around that, but as you can see, that one is very, very niche there. And then we have one of the potentially worst fights in all of Act 6.1. So this is a buffed up Pilfer Symbiote Supreme. Now, buffed up is a terribly fun node that we've seen in a little bit of map 7 here. So the defender takes 100% less damage while the attacker has less than 3 buffs applied to them, and these buffs can be of the same type. So you need to have 3 buffs active on you to deal any damage to the Symbiote Supreme, and also the Pilfer node has a 20% chance any buff that you get to instantly nullify it and give the defender 20% power. Also, whenever a buff expires, it's going to have Prey on the Weak as well, which is going to give Symbiote Supreme power as well. And then also you've got Symbiote Supreme's Awakened ability, which places a stagger on you. I think it's every like 12 to 14 seconds, so that's going to stagger the next buff as well. So yeah, the requirements to getting that Symbiote Supreme down, you need heavy buff champions. I've seen some people get through it with Aegon and Ghost, but again, very, very niche, man. I think like the best option that I've maybe got is Hyperion, spamming heavies, and hope that I just don't get absolutely nuked. Because as well as on top of that stuff, is Symbiote Supreme does have the, what is it, whenever a buff expires on you, you're going to get damage as well, or is, you know, what is it, nullified by Pilfer or his Awakened ability. So yeah, that one is just absolutely mad there, lads. Also got super fun fights, and the buff up, I believe, is for the rest of the path as well, that you need that. Same, again, the shock is the entire path as well. Now, looking at this next node, we've got Caustic Temper. So basically, the defender has a 50% chance to poison when struck, but this also has a secondary effect that if the attacker has no active fury buffs, the defender takes 90% less damage. So basically, if you need to bring a poison immune champion, and if you don't have a fury buff, you're dealing like no damage at all. So it quickly turns kind of 180k Doctor Strange into a 1.8 million Doctor Strange. And this Doctor Strange, he's going to be stripping those fury buffs like crazy. You know what his signature ability is like. So yeah, that's a super fun one. Again, like Hyperion and Ghost seem to be some of the best options for that. Maybe Aegon as well. If you've Aegon is just the absolute like godsend for Act 6. He's absolutely ridiculous. But there are, you know, the point that I'm trying to make is there are very limited counters to some of these nodes and scenarios outside of the god tier champions. And if you could bring in 4 stars, they'd be viable alternatives for people that don't have the utility to counter some of this stuff, as, you know, in their 5 and 6 star roster. And also to cover another fun path, lads, and you're going to love this one. This one looks like a nightmare for my roster. So this one is a Mesmerized path with Limber on as well. So if we have a look at the Spider-Man Miles Morales here, he's got 20% Limber. He's got the Mesmerized node as well, but he also has Can't Touch This, which boosts his passive evade by 50%. So the Spider-Man Miles Morales, at base chance, while he's got his charges up, has something like a 77% chance to evade, plus Limber as well. I have no idea. Like True Strike champions like Corvus and maybe Aegon, if you ramp up the combo as well, are probably some of the solutions for this lad. But again, very, very niche counters there. Venom as well, like specifically for this Spider-Man, would work in this scenario. But I'm thinking like maybe my best option on my main whale account is to go Domino, and then I'm very fortunate enough as well to have 6-star Red Hulk and Massacre, and kind of extend the stun duration and just spam those heavy attacks. And I think I might be able to get like 4 or 5 heavy attacks before he becomes, you know, pretty much immune to stun, and that tactic stops working. But then again, we've got Mesmerize and Limber on all sorts of fun fights, like Mordo. I guess the Limber doesn't matter too much on Mordo there, but also the Mesmerize Iron Man Infinity War. Oh my goodness, that's certainly going to be a very, very fun fight there, I imagine, as well. So yeah, some of this stuff is just, you know, absolutely crazy, and Taskmaster has, you know, an additional evade chance as well on this path. So, you know, you see my point about when it comes to the wider scope of 100%ing Act 6, there's a lot of very niche fights that require certain counters, and also looking in the previous chapter as well, we've got requirements like you need an Incinerate immune champion. There's the same thing with Shock, but Incinerate immunity there. And there, you know, I guess there are, you know, some more viable Incinerate immune characters like Void and Iceman, and I think Emma Frost as well, and a couple of others. Mephisto, I think, is fully immune to Incinerate damage. Also, Havoc is as well. And it's right down here on the right side of quest number 5, where we have the Incinerate path with also a very, very strong buffet node as well. So this one just seems, you know, pretty crazy to deal with. Like getting not only an Incinerate immune character, but a very high damage output one in a 5-star roster or a 6-star roster, that's going to be a real hassle for a lot of people, man. So yeah, that one seems a little bit crazy, but for this path as well, man, if you had the 4-star Void and the skill to do it, he would just be an absolute monster. He would mince through all of these fights like absolutely nothing. If a player had the skill and strategy to do it with a 4-star Void, be totally possible, but you know, you need to wail out, man. You need to get lucky enough to pull that 5-star Void in order to have a good time on this one. So yeah, it just still seems completely senseless. And just going to the Crossbones fight as well, so if you're going for completion, this is probably what is going to be the biggest roadblock, because this crossbone has the biohazard note, so he has an insane amount of bleed damage when struck, but also vigor as well, so regeneration to deal with, and he has about 400,000 hit points. So again, the counters are very, very niche. You've got champions like Omega Red, Aegon, Iceman, Awakened Sentinel. You've got also like Ghost and Quake in certain scenarios as well, I've seen work, but you know, you need to have a very high damage output, ideally bleed immune character. And one of the things that's just, you know, annoys me a little bit is to get that bleed immune counter, to get rid of crossbones and get this lad down, the current solution is you need to get lucky enough to pull a high damage output bleed immune character as a 5 or 6 star. And if you want to get this, there's no proactive way to do it currently. However, if 4-star champions were allowed and not banned in Act 6, what you could do right now, if we have a look at the arena, the current basic champion is actually the wonderful Omega Red. So if you were a proactive grinder right now and 4-star champions were not banned in Act 6, you could jump into the Omega Red arena, put about 4.5 million points in order to be safe, get that 4-star version of Omega Red, awaken him via various like Act 4, Act 5 Road to the Labyrinth awakening gems. You know, 4-star awakening gems nowadays, like they drop like candy all over the place, so you could proactively get the champion, awaken him, get a load of sig levels in him, max him out, and then take that champion into Act 6 and get that crossbones down. You probably have to boost up and also use Suicide Masteries as well, which again, you could put the time into Arena in order to unlock those Suicide Masteries, but you know, that fate would be in your own control. As a player, you could physically grind out the counter and actually get a good option to bypass crossbones by playing the game instead of just waiting to get lucky and pulling a strong enough bleed immune champion. So again, I really do stick to my stance that the 4-star ban is just a completely senseless cash grab. And again, this is only the very first chapter out of 3 others. And as we progress, you know, in terms of the damage requirements, 4-star champions to a certain extent are going to become increasingly more irrelevant later on in the chapter. And we are going to move into a stage of the game where 5-star and 6-star champions and shards are more accessible. But there's still no reason why, if a skilled player has a good 4-star champion and they want to go out and grind the counters to these fights that they can bring in, why they should not be allowed to do it. And I still kind of stick with my stance on the 1-star decisions, and in my opinion, banning 4-star champions was a 1-star decision, does equal 1-star reviews, and this is the result in terms of the Apple Store of the 1-star reviews. And I think we did a good job at sending a message that this is just a completely arbitrary ban. The current version of MCOC has a 2.0 review on the Apple Store, and it's still just a terrible, terrible decision to ban 4-star champions, which hasn't at all been justified. Now, having a look at the Android Store, there's something a little bit funky going on, because it seems to be brigaded by positive reviews between the 3rd and 15th of March. So you can see there's like over 2,600 1-star reviews within the last 5 days, but also there's 2,800, and when you start looking at these 5-star reviews, they're very, very fishy, man. So it looks like, I mean, this goes on with all mobile gaming companies, but there's something very fishy going on with like buying really good reviews via some sort of an external company, and it just seems very, very peculiar. But it looks like those reviews are significantly more difficult and or expensive to buy on the Apple Store, so that's a great time there. But yeah, I have no idea where these you know, this massive crowd of overwhelmingly happy Android players has come from, because it's not at all represented in any community that I've ever seen form in Marvel Contest of Champions. So yeah, that is a very, very peculiar one. To clarify something, earlier this week I did call for 1-star reviews, which I still 100%, if you do not agree with this greedy line of decision making, go to the App Store right now and leave a 1-star review. I very, very much encourage that, but I haven't called for a boycott, and there's a very good reason for that, and that's because I personally know from first-hand experience that boycotts are not effective unless you have everybody united, and mainly the spenders. And when it comes to the release of Act 6, the people that aren't affected by this line of decision making are the big spenders, the endgame veterans, people that have stacked out rosters of 5 and 6 star champions. A lot of them just aren't really that bothered by this line of decision making, or just don't really care enough about it to actually stop spending and boycott the game. And when it comes to Act 6 and some of the stuff that it offers, man, it's pretty much a whale's wet dream. Like, the Cavalier crystals are absolutely insane, and the offer for like it's about $400 US to get another rank 5 champion. I've seen so many whales lap that up as well, and like, fair play to them, man. They've got, you know, a ton of money. They're just chilling, knocking about. But that's the thing. I just don't think boycotts are at all effective, and it only serves to undermine future boycotts unless you have everybody in the community, including the spending power, united under kind of a list of messages or stuff that you would like to change in the game. So it hit that point with 12.0 where the game was just so incredibly broken that at that point it was just a very, very clear and effective message. But at the moment where this just doesn't really affect the spending power of Wales, and there are so many people, as you've probably seen over the last few days, that have whaled out on Cavalier crystals and brought all these crazy offers, just a boycott is horrendously ineffective at the moment. It wouldn't work, because not enough people care about not spending on this game for it to have any sort of impact. So the 1-star reviews, I think, are a good way of kind of voicing the displeasure of the majority of the community, because while a lot of whales, you know, it doesn't personally affect them, a lot are happy to be like, yeah, that sucks for newer players, man, that's not a good time. A lot of them are really, really great people, but at the same time, like, they love spending on this game. You know, pretty much everybody at the top's got a severe gambling addiction at this point, and they just don't really want to slow down, which is, you know, fair play to them. But that is the thing when it comes to a boycott, man, and this just isn't something that a boycott movement is going to be effective in. The 4-star champion ban is still a really unnecessary cash grab that only further serves to disadvantage players with underdeveloped rosters that can't get lucky enough to pull specific counters. And, you know, I just don't know how many more times I can voice that opinion. Like, at the moment, everything just is seemingly getting ignored. But at least I'm trying to get out there and make a difference and voice my feedback and put forward good reasons why 4-star champions should not be banned from Act 6, because it really just screws over players, again, that can't get lucky enough to pull specific counters for the wider fights when it comes to 100% Act 6. So yeah, I'm trying, my dudes. I'm really trying. I've put forward kind of my best effort for this, tried to respond to everything and give my honest feedback, thoughts and opinions, but the 4-star champion ban really needs to be removed. And at the end of the day, this might be ignored by Kabam. Still, they seem to be ignoring, you know, everything else that we've done. Maybe that's just their position, but I'm trying my best, guys. I'm trying my best. I feel like I've given this everything I possibly can. And it's just unfortunate that Kabam just seem to be kind of putting their foot down on this one and just going, yeah, it's fine, it's not going to change, guys, just we're going to let this one fade out. But you know, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen, and at the end of the day, we might just be required to take the L on this one, because I don't know, boys, I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, take care. Have an absolutely fantastic day.